Hey guys, Chelsea from Attention to Details, and today in the shop I'm working on a really fun project. Actually, it's a really cool project to me. I grew up in Lakeland, Florida, and as a teenager, one of my friends actually had one of these vehicles. I just thought it was the coolest vehicle. I honestly have always wanted to own one of these. It has 112,000 miles on it. You don't find vehicles like this in such great condition. Now, he did have actually a professional paint job applied to it, and we've waited the 60 to 90 days to allow the solvents to gas off. You don't want to do any sort of wax sealants or coatings on a new paint job just to allow those kind of gases to air off. But today we're going to be applying a ceramic coating to him, and you might be wondering, what is this vehicle? Like, is it a Ferrari? You probably are thinking in your head it's some crazy exotic vehicle. No. It's actually a 1999 Ford Ranger. I love these vehicles. I don't know why. And this one is actually in fantastic condition. So I'm excited to work on it for my customer. I'm going to share with you guys a quick peek at what our paint condition looks like. What we're going to be doing is wash, decon, a quick paint enhancement just to bring out a little bit more gloss, clean it up, make sure there's no protection on it. And then we're going to be applying a ceramic coating. This is actually a coating that I've worked with in the past, but the manufacturer came out with a upgrade to it. So I'm going to share with you guys my experience working with this coating for the first time. We actually were able to help develop this coating with the manufacturer just to kind of give them some feedback, some things that I was looking for, and it gets to go on this gorgeous Ford Ranger. So I'm excited. We're going to get it prepped and share with you guys a little bit of what prep looks like for those of you that have never done a ceramic coating prep, and then we'll demonstrate for you guys our new Kronos V2 coating. So let's go ahead, get set up and get to work. But man, this is going to be a super fun day for me. So I can see we have some very mild water spots on the hood. Hopefully those will clean up easily with our wash and decontamination. We do have a little bit of pitting on our chrome, so we're going to just use a metal polish, clean that up a little bit before we again lock in our condition. We have a nice fine metallic flake on the paint. There is a slight bit of orange peel texture to this, but as far as the interior, we are going to do an interior detail for him as well. This is my favorite part of these vehicles. I don't know why. We do have some pet hair, and we've got some really thick carpet. So we're going to use our aniline brush, our Furial Pro vacuum attachment. That should clean up beautifully. We're also going to extract. We do have some stains in the back seat. Our steering wheel does have a buildup of dirt on it that we need to scrub all that off. Clean our turn signals. Just get everything scrubbed nice and clean. These seats, we do have a lot of dust, and even on our armrest here, you can see we just have a lot of kind of staining and body oils that have kind of trapped all that dirt. So we're going to extract all of our upholstered surfaces. We'll clean our mats. Not too bad, actually. Looks like we have some coffee spills there. And then on our passenger seat, again, we just have, you know, some basic wear and tear, some stains. I do see, looks like we had pretty major coffee spill right here. How big was this spill? Let's see. All the way back here. And it's quite possible that that may not necessarily be tannin stains from coffee or tea. It could be cigarette smoke or nicotine staining. Just with the amount of kind of browning that I'm seeing. Let's see if our headliner... Normally, if your vehicle has been smoked in, you'll see kind of a black smoke residue on the headliner. I'm not seeing that like in these areas, because as they kind of hold the cigarette out the window oftentimes, or they'll blow it out the window, all that smoke just kind of goes right back here. But we do have a lot of pet hair actually that we need to remove. The interior is pretty straightforward, just really good vacuuming, proper chemicals, agitate, extract, clean all of our plastics. Yeah, maybe we did have some smoking going on, because you can see, like, as our seatbelt is pulled out, we don't have as much staining. But then here, but again, that could be like 15 plus years of just body oils and dirt. These are the type of projects that I absolutely love working on as a detailer. So let's go ahead and get set up. I think it's gonna turn out great. Even though this vehicle is, let's do the math, 25 years old. This vehicle's 25 years old. It's pretty amazing. Even though this vehicle is 25 years old, I'm actually like really excited. We might, just for kicks and giggles, jump in the back seat just to demonstrate for you guys like how cool these trucks were. All right. I just want to see if I can actually remember how to get in this thing. Let's see if I could even, oh yeah, I could totally fit. I could totally fit. You can see, even a 40-year-old mom, you could totally fit. Now, whoever you're sitting with, God bless their souls. All right, enough with the talking. Let's get on with the detail. You can see when we're doing our high pressure rinse, our paint does look like it has something on it. It's sheeting. That could actually be because it is new paint. Paint by itself, when it's brand new, will have some hydrophobics to it, more like sheeting. We need to make sure that everything is cleaned, decontaminated, and that we have a flat panel before we apply our ceramic coating. So even though this is brand new paint, we might still have to polish it. We're washing with our Apex Auto Wash, really nice thick suds, excellent lubrication for our wash. We are trying to minimize any sort of scratches on this brand new paint because I really don't want to have to scratch it if I can avoid it. We're going to do a safe contact wash, and then we'll come in and do a chemical decon and clay towel treatment. Even though the vehicle does have fresh paint on it, it's been on there for 2 to 3 months. The customer still could have picked up some tar, still could have some rail dust on the paint. So it's important that we don't skip the decontamination step, even if you're working on brand new paint. And I'm actually really glad that we didn't skip on the clay towel treatment, because you'll notice in just a second after we apply our iron remover, there was a ton of contaminants on this paint. Just turn your volume up real quick and take a listen. You can tell if the surface of your vehicle is contaminated by putting your hand in a plastic baggie, and if it feels gritty and it is gritty to the ear, then you know you have contaminants on the surface. But even when doing this clay towel treatment, I can hear and feel a ton of grit under the surface. This, come to find out, actually had a ton of overspray all over the back trunk. There was white paint and it was thick, and I could feel and hear it as soon as I hit it with my clay towel. Notice how it's getting quieter the more I go back and forth over the surface. We weren't able to remove 100% of the overspray with our clay towel though, so we did actually have to follow up with a second clay bar treatment. Oh, those water spots. Looks like they came up. Spots of rust on our chrome. We're gonna see if we can remove those before we ceramic coat. This is Quick Glow. I actually had someone send these to me years ago. I mean, we're talking like 5-6 years ago. Put a little bit on a microfiber. You don't need to do a lot of heavy cleaning, and just go over it. It has pitted, so unfortunately we can't undo damage, but you want to try to prevent that rust stain that's pitted into the metal from kind of leaching or bleeding more into it. There's nothing quite like a little good old car therapy. This used to be one of my chores as a kid, polishing the chrome on my parents' vehicles. So for me, it's actually super relaxing. You can see just how quickly we were able to remove the rust and do a little bit of preventative maintenance for our customer. Before we polish our vehicle and apply the ceramic coating, we're going to get the vacuuming out of the way, so that way we don't have any sort of airborne dust get trapped in our ceramic coating. This is super thick carpet, and the pet hair was like heavily ingrained. Thank God for the Fur-Il Pro brush and the aniline brush. We were able to pull out all the hair deep within the fibers of the carpet and the backs of the seats. It just wanted to kind of keep coming and coming. So for those of you that have pets, these are 2 tools that I would highly recommend. I'm pretty sure this vehicle was smoked in at some point. You can either tell by the seatbelts or the headliner. Some people will actually take this outside the vehicle and pressure wash it, and you can scour it. It's very hard to, but seatbelts are a liability insurance wise. Don't tell me that that's not nicotine, but seatbelts are a liability insurance wise, and so personally I prefer not to pressure wash it. but we are gonna extract it. This was probably one of the most rewarding yet disgusting areas of the vehicle that I cleaned. I probably should have put a towel under the seatbelt as I was cleaning to try to prevent some of that excess staining from transferring onto our upholstered seat, but I did clean our seat in the next step, so I wasn't too concerned about it. I was really impressed how easily these seatbelts cleaned up with just a chemical agitating and extracting with cold water. For those that are working on newer vehicles with a retractable seatbelt, you want to try to pull the seatbelt all the way out, use a clip to keep it there. Do this step to clean and then leave your seatbelt fully extended until it is completely dry, so that way you avoid any sort of mold or mildew starting to grow on the interior of the vehicle. That's done. We're gonna let that air go. Not 100%, but it's decades worth of filth removed. If you want to get a steamer in there to break that up a little bit more, you can. I'd say that's a lot better compared to what it was. To extract our seats and our carpets, I'm using one of my favorite cleaners. This is actually a professional carpet cleaning solution from Bonnet Pro. It's their Surround Omega. It will leave behind a fresh scent like the name says, but it's a heavy-duty cleaner used by professional carpet cleaners. This is going to help break down a lot of the organic stains, and especially on lighter colored carpets where when you have some heavier soiling and you have a higher risk of wicking, this is one of my go-to chemicals for this type of scenario. I'm also using my Aqua Pro Vac because you can see it can get in a lot of really tight angles very easily. Sometimes my other extractors, their bulky heads limit what I can do. We do have a lot of nicotine on this interior, and so we're going to actually spot treat with Super Salt from Superior Products. This actually can help break down tar. You'll see in just a second when we agitate our carpet how it's kind of activating some hidden tar pockets on the carpet, but it breaks it down and makes it very easy for you to extract. Now this does have a high like petroleum scent to it, so you just want to make sure you rinse it thoroughly because you don't want any sort of like a gasoline scent left behind on the interior, but it's one of my favorites for deep cleaning tar and smoke damage. Now that our interior is all but completed, we can move on to our paint correction. Because this is fresh paint, there really isn't a lot of damage as far as swirls and scratches on the paint. We do have some issues that we'll discuss in just a second, but really the only scratches that we needed to remove were the ones that I had induced during our clay towel step. This paint didn't tolerate that too well, so we did have quite a bit of marring that we needed to polish out. So we ended up using our gold standard polish and our gold waffle pad from DIY Detail. The more and more I use this product, the more I find it to be one of the best universal polishes for most paint types. It gave us all but 95% correction on this paint, so it turned out really, really beautiful. So we're making good time with our paint enhancement, and I just wanted to touch on a topic for those of you that maybe you have a vehicle that has been resprayed. Maybe you've been in an accident, maybe you buy a used vehicle, the paint quality is in poor condition. Some of the issues that can happen with resprays or poor quality paint jobs, we actually have numerous of those defects on this paint, and I just want to quickly touch on them. On this roof, if you actually look in the light right here, you see all the kind of speckles in the reflection of the paint, and if we were to actually come over here, you can see it very visibly as well. This is actually a term called solvent pop, and this is actually when they're spraying the paint, they're doing multiple thin coats to build up in thickness. And each layer, typically, I'm not a body shop person, so for those of you that maybe you have experience with paint, if I'm wrong in any of this, feel free to correct me. But typically each layer, you have to let it dry, you have to allow the solvents to gas off. And if you don't allow proper time for each layer to dry, maybe you're speeding up the process to get it out the door, what can happen is those gases will become kind of stuck in between each layer. And eventually, as things start to dry, those gases will kind of come up to the surface and you'll have solvent pop. Now, is there a fix for solvent pop? There's kind of some debate on whether or not you can correct this issue. Typically, my answer is this is a respray. This is not something that I could correct, because the issue is if I come in and try to wet sand in compound and polish, number one, I need to make sure we have enough paint to be able to do that, because these are aggressive measures of correction. You're going to be removing paint to basically get down to a level where we don't have this. It's like sanding wood to remove the defects to get to a finer finish. So if you do not have enough paint on the surface to correct these issues, then typically there is no fixing it. If you do have pretty thick paint, we're talking 5-6 mils thick, maybe even upwards, you might be able to, but you also run the risk that with some solvent pop, as you go further down trying to shave off some of the paint to get to kind of a pure level or a flat level, it can actually get bigger. So I've seen some instances where people, the further down they go, the more pronounced the solvent pop is, because kind of that bigger bubble as it gets to the surface gets really finer. So it's hit or miss. Typically my rule of stance though is I don't try to remove it. That is a respray. That is something that you need to go back to the body shop that sprayed it and have that corrected. Some other issues that we have with this paint, and again, when you're going to a body shop, they're painting multiple vehicles. One thing that is always a concern when you're getting a vehicle painted is overspray. And on this back trunk, you can actually see, like right here, where we have kind of a little bit of a fadedness, and right here you can see where they tape things off, and we don't have quite as crisp of an edge where we don't have even clear. But when I was washing and decontaminating this back paint, it was very gritty to the touch, very gritty to the ear. So we did a heavy clay bar, because we actually, if you come in close, you can see a little bit right here. We actually have some overspray. Now it looks like it's actually in the clear, and because we have a smooth finish, because when we step back from a distance, you don't really see it, we're going to proceed with our ceramic coating. I'm not going to necessarily look to shave off this clear coat, because again, this is a respray, customer satisfied. There's no point in me kind of killing myself. But for those of you that see that wanted to correct that, typically overspray a heavy clay pad to remove as much as you can. You can do a heavy correction and polish. You just need to make sure that you have enough paint. Two other things that we have on this vehicle that typically are not going to be fixable. Again, it's based on how much paint you have, the budget that the customer has to work with. The first one that's kind of the most obvious is if you look in the reflection at the basketball hoop, the house, you see kind of like a wavy texture to the paint. That's called orange peel. It actually looks like the surface of an orange. Typically, you're going to get a lot more of that on a lower rocker panel of a vehicle. They really build up the bottom to kind of protect the paint from rock chips. But if you have not the best quality of paint job, even some factory paint, you can have this. You're going to have kind of that wavy appearance and have an orange peel. Now, you can correct this with like a denim pad, heavy correction, wet sanding, things like that. But again, make sure you have enough paint to be able to do that. The other issue that we have on this paint, and it's actually not fixable, is you see right here in the paint. So this looks like either a fisheye or a dust nib under the paint. It could be one or the other, but my best guess is a fisheye. If I were to actually come in and try to correct this, you might actually find a cavity where no paint was able to kind of go into it. So typically when I see things like this, I don't try to correct them. That's just my personal view, because you could potentially be having a bigger issue. My standard rule of thumb is if a customer has come to me with a vehicle that's been recently resprayed, we notice these defects. Number one, it's not my job as the detailer to fix. This is something that they should go back to the body shop. I didn't make the problem. It shouldn't necessarily be my problem to fix it. So that's kind of my number one encompassing rule. Number two, if there are defects that the customer says to me, I don't trust the body shop, can you correct them? I need to have enough paint on the vehicle to be able to work with those things. I need to have the budget necessary to do the work, to do those things, and it's not always the cheapest. And I need to have realistic expectations. So when the customer says to me, correct these issues, if I don't have enough paint, I'm not going to do it. If the customer says to me, I want it done for $150, $200, $300, I'm not going to do it. There's not enough money in it for me. That's basically for me to do a one-step correction. The time it takes for you to chase all of these individual defects is going to be a lot more than what most customers are willing to pay. But thirdly, you do run the risk of liability. If you try to tackle issues like this and there are bigger defects that you expose, the body shop's going to say, you had someone else touch it, we're not liable. The customer's going to say, I want a respray now. So you have to ask yourself, is it worth chasing some of these defects? If you are working in the car show world, where you have concourse vehicles, exotic vehicles that are on display, that are investments, if you have the skill set and the customer's budget, that is where I think that approach is going to work best. But on daily drivers like this is a truck that's going to be driven around town, used hard for chores and things like that. The customer said he was really happy with the paint job. He said he actually paid for a better quality paint job. As a detailer, do I see these defects and say, I don't know if it's as quality as he thought? Maybe, but if the customer is satisfied with it, it's not my job to point out these defects and say we need to correct them. Because if he doesn't see them in my world, that's okay. We're just going to proceed as normal then. We're going to do our paint enhancement. We're going to let the solvent pop, the fish eyes go, because it's not necessarily going to affect what I'm doing with the ceramic coating. Overspray, yes, we will correct, because we don't want any sort of contaminants under the clear coat that's going to affect its durability. So we've removed as much as we can without being super aggressive on the paint. Some of it's actually now just bonded with the clear coat. But for those of you that see defects with resprays or with paint jobs on customers' vehicles, and you say, correct those issues, sometimes they're not correctable. Sometimes it's a respray. Sometimes the body shop needs to go back and fix the issues that they created. But for those that want to tackle those jobs, make sure you have enough paint, make sure you have enough in the budget, and make sure you have realistic expectations, knowing that you may actually be creating a bigger problem that you're now on the hook to fix. So just something to think about. After polishing, we're going to do a panel prep step to remove the polishing oils. This is actually from the same manufacturer of the coating we're going to be using. This is a fantastic panel prep. I think actually it's one of his best products. You can see just how quickly it evaporates and leaves behind a squeaky clean surface. So now we are ready to apply our coating. So the first time I used Kronos V1, I found it to be ever so slightly grabby, and after a long day of polishing and prep work, the last thing you want to do is fight a coating. Aaron took that feedback, went to his chemist and said, what can we do to make it easier? And that's where they came up with V2, and boy did he deliver. So you can see we have all but rainbowed off, but in our edges, areas where it was a little higher, you can still see some of that, but we just have kind of a little bit of a hazier appearance. We did let it sit on there a little long, in my opinion. It was all but evaporated by the time we came in to level it. I think with our sections moving forward, we won't let it sit quite as long, but that wasn't difficult at all. Didn't have a ton of transfer solution that I was pushing around, so that means less risk of high spots. It wasn't the longest of flash times in this weather. It is getting a little bit warmer though. So again, if you're working in hot, humid, environments, you're going to want to let it sit shorter. Longer if it's cooler and less humid. But in this environment, we let it sit on there 30 seconds, 45 seconds. Wasn't difficult. So we're going to work section by section versus doing 2 sections at a time in this environment. If it was cooler, less humid, we might be able to do 2 and push it a little bit further. But I'm not going to fight that. I'm not going to be upset at that. We'll just work section by section. The thing that impressed me the most with this coating when Aaron was developing it was how durable this coating was. We actually did a video where we tested multiple different coatings out. This one was number 1 with ease of application, but it also performed extremely well with our chemical torture test. All of the coatings actually withstood up to the equivalent of oven cleaner. So as long as you are not using oven cleaner to clean your vehicle, this coating should perform really well for you. Some of the features that I enjoyed most with the upgraded version of Kronos, obviously Aaron was able to make the application and leveling process much more user-friendly. Whether you're a beginner or pro alike, you're going to be able to master this ceramic coating. I did find that the sweet spot for leveling was around 45 seconds. If I let it sit on there for longer than a minute, I found that a majority of the ceramic coating transfer solution had all but evaporated. It wasn't difficult if we let it sit on there longer, but you're going to find it more enjoyable if you find that sweet spot in the environment you're working with. For me, it was around 45 seconds to a minute. This is a higher solids content. It's about 40% solids. So you're going to find that a good bit of it is going to bond with the clear coat and not as much of it is going to be pushed around with your transfer solution. So there's less of an oil slick look, less risk of high spots with this type of a solution. This is actually an industrial rated ceramic coating with up to 7-year durability claim. It's going to run you around $55 for a 30 milliliter bottle, and you'll really be impressed about an hour after application and leveling the slickness that is on the paint. It's not immediately slick, but boy does it come in on the back end. But we are all done with our coating. Let's go ahead and show you guys what we were able to do on the interior. Obviously, our upholstery was able to clean up remarkably well with our Bonnet Pro Omega Fresh. We were able to remove all of the nicotine staining from our gray carpets, deep clean all of our plastics. We even applied a really great dressing from Vonix on our interior plastics. And you can see everything cleaned up really nice on the interior for the customer. And if you remember, on our passenger side carpet, we had all of that brown staining from smoke residue, and our Super Sol and Omega Fresh were able to really do a great job at deep cleaning the carpet and removing all of that smoke damage. When the customer came to pick up the vehicle, he said the interior looked brand new. So I think he was really happy with how the interior turned out. But for me, I was actually most impressed with how the exterior turned out. After just doing a quick paint enhancement and applying our Kronos coating, this 1999 Ford Ranger, it looks like a 2024 Ford Ranger. I kind of wish that they would just start making new trucks with this old body style. I don't think there was anything wrong with the original, but we've been able to preserve the finish on this exterior, give the customer exactly what he was looking for, which is easier maintenance moving forward. He was extremely happy with the end result, loved the slickness on the paint, is really looking forward to maintaining it with the Apex Auto Wash and the Titan Detailer. And if you guys enjoyed this closer look at Phoenix EOD Kronos V2, make sure you give us a thumbs up so that way we know you enjoyed this video. Did you guys know that you can actually purchase Phoenix EOD now at the House of Rags? Head on over to their website. You can actually use coupon code A2D10 and you're going to be able to save 10% off of Phoenix EOD's products. So make sure you guys head on over to their website. You can purchase it there now. So we are all done with our Ford Ranger. We've applied our Kronos V2, but we were able to remove nicotine stain damage. We were able to remove the pet hair, get the interior nice and clean, protect the exterior for the customer. I think they're really going to be happy with how easy it is to maintain moving forward. But if you guys have any questions about the products that we use in this detail about Kronos V2, let me know your questions in the comment section down below. Thank you, Aaron, for always supporting this channel, for sending me this for you guys to review. This was not sponsored, but I did receive free product to test out and share with you guys my experience. So thank you, Aaron, for trusting me with your product. And if you guys want to try this out for yourself, we're going to put the link for it down below. But thank you guys for watching and for tuning in, and we will see you in the next detail.